Boom. Now we're live. Neil, we got a good show tonight. Show number 500.
And I don't know, a lot.
It's a lot of shows, everybody, but welcome to the Off the Lip Radio Show. We are streaming live on Santa Cruz Waves Facebook page.
We are. Yep.
And you can always catch all of our shows on YouTube. I think we're over 500 on YouTube now.
A lot of them on YouTube.
Yes, a lot of them are on YouTube. Neil, talk about the show tonight. What's going on?
Well, the reason we're going to come back, first of all, if anybody wants to write in, we're all vaccinated.
Yes.
We're all distance apart.
Yes.
Okay, so please, if you want to write in, that's fine.
Right.
But I'll just delete it anyway. But
don't worry about the masks.
yes.
We are 100% vaccinated.
And first of all, of all the people, since COVID began, the person that's worn the worst mask is him.
Oh, I took heat for that
Oh,
at your last show.
yeah.
Oh, he just keeps messing with the mask.
It was the worst, right?
It was
bad.
Yeah.
It was bad.
You ixnayed that one, right?
Oh yeah, that sucker's gone. I don't listen to a whole lot of comments, but that one was actually true. So
It was a bad mask.
Well, without further ado, everybody, we would like to welcome back Chief Andy Mills, the top cop here in Santa Cruz, and becoming a good friend of the show.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate
the reason we came back, should we tell them the real reason we came back? Because he made a promise.
The last show. And we got it on camera.
We can talk about homeless, we can talk about all the shit that's going on in Santa Cruz, but he promised us a ride in the Bearcat, and we're going to shoot some shit.
Shoot some guns. We got to get the chief back on the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. So,
And if you're in the neighborhood and you hear, you know what it is.
Yeah.
It's TC and
so we're
Neil.
back, and we really don't want to talk to the guy.
We just want to go to the Bearcat.
Okay, show's over.
Good night, everybody. We're going to the Bearcat.
How's it going, Chief?
It's going good, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, having a great time.
You are?
Oh heck yeah, this is awesome.
You actually are really enjoying your job.
I love policing. I know it's a tough time right now. I know there's a lot of frustration with policing all over the country, and there should be. We've done some terrible things. But overall, this is a good job. There's not a day I don't wake up and think I get to go to work today. In fact, I come in normally 7 days a week to do something. It's that much fun to me.
Well, and you literally live like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
I mean, you live in the heart of Santa Cruz City.
I live downtown Santa Cruz, above Forever 21, in a little loft with my wife, and we walk down. I walk downtown literally every single day, and that's good. Now sometimes it's not good because I walk on the way home from work the other day. There's 2 guys rolling around the middle of the street fighting at SoCal and Pacific, and people trying to walk by kind of like this. And
In uniform?
No, I'm in plain clothes.
Okay.
And everybody's yelling, "Hey, Chief, they're fighting!" So, I didn't notice.
How have you dealt with the mistakes that have been made in the last year or two with police departments around the country? How have you dealt with that? How have you dealt with that here locally with the confidence in your staff?
Yeah, so it's tough. First of all, in policing, we have to admit when we're wrong. And I think that's one of the things that we're not doing very well. And, a lot of times they're concerned about liability, and the attorneys are telling you that, hey, you can't admit that we were wrong, because if we do, they're going to sue us. Well, I hate to tell you, the person that got shot knows they got shot. They're going to sue you anyway. So I would much rather be honest and upfront and say we either did well or we didn't do well, and here's where we can do better. We're going to investigate it. We'll fix it and change our policies to make sure we don't do it again. So my personal opinion is credibility is extremely important. And I think that we lost as a profession a great deal of credibility because of Derek Chauvin and his actions. But more importantly, not what he did, but how policing around the country reacted to it.
Right.
There were too many guys and gals going, we don't see that he did anything wrong, where any idiot with eyes watching this can see that was terrible. That was unlawful, it was murderous. And so I called it out right from the beginning because that's what I believed as a citizen of our country. And I took some heat for it.
Well, that photo Samuel took of you taking a knee was one of the first, I think, in the country that kind of went viral, seeing a police officer have empathy for what happened.
Right. That was intentional. I'd had enough of seeing what I viewed as cops who had been abusing people. And then And so I went down there to take a knee. I didn't know that it was going to be next to Justin. I didn't know that Samuel Schmall would take that photo. But I was going to go down and take a knee because I believe it was the right thing to do at the right time. I think, and then whatever happened after that happened after that. But we've got to do a better job in policing of being honest and being direct and calling it out when we see things wrong. More importantly, intervening when we see something happening in the field.
You're talking about taking care of it in our town.
Right.
Right? In our town. You can't worry about what's going on in other
Well,
parts of the country, other parts of our neighborhood.
Yeah, well, I can't control what happens in Capitola
Right.
or whatever. I mean, Chip Terry's a great chief, and the sheriff, I actually think, we have really good executive staff, and officers and deputies around here. So I can't worry about that. They got to do what's best for their own city. I do think that people like me need to have an influence nationally. And so I'm involved in the organizations, both statewide and nationally, to speak out and to say, hey, this is wrong. We've got to do better. If I don't know that I can look at myself in the mirror and say, you've been a good cop. I've spent 40 years doing this, a little bit over, and I am intent on making sure that we do things the best way we can. Now, there's a lot of really questionable things that happen because this is a difficult profession. I can't tell you how difficult it is for the men and women who do this. It is gut-wrenching for them. I mean, the stuff they see on a daily basis.
I was going to ask you that. Can we add to what you're talking about? What happens on a daily basis? I know you openly talk about it on Facebook, on social media.
Yeah.
What the day of a police officer is here in this town. Can you give us just the average day?
Yeah. Well, the average day can be a little bit crazy. It's interesting because one day you can, people will go on to ride along and say, man, we didn't really do anything. It was, 10 hours of boredom. Well, that's kind of what policing is sometimes. It's 10 hours of boredom punctuated by 10 minutes of terror. And the problem with policing, it's different than the military. The military, you're in country, and it's that 6 months of complete, unadulterated horror. And policing, it's the drip, drip, drip for 20 years of stress. And it really does affect our people. I mean, high divorce rates, high substance abuse rates, and talking about policing in general, not necessarily here in specific. Sexual, deviancy. I mean, there's all these things that go with it. I've talked to doctors who are, in charge of ER rooms and so
Right.
forth, and they see exactly the same characteristics and traits. So that is tough. And so the average day, I went out, not last Sunday, yesterday, but a week ago Sunday, just to work in the field, because let's face it, I don't do that very often, to see what real cops do for a living, and just decided to work out in the field. And for the first couple hours, it's pretty slow, so when I got coffee with a couple of the guys, made some stops, covered them on stops, they're doing their proactive police work, and then it just went off the charts. The beach started getting full, meth started kicking in, and nothing good can happen. A guy decided that for the third time that he's just going to occupy somebody else's home. And we have no idea. He's from Aptos. And so he just decided, I'm just going to go live in this home. And so, the maid gets there to clean it, and this guy's standing there with a knife in his hand because he was cooking. So he just got food out of the fridge and just cutting up food, cooking, and burning the sage.
Is he just trying to become a squatter?
No. The people were living there. It was just
They weren't home then.
they weren't home at the moment, but they were living there. And so, we get there and we arrest him, take him to jail. He gets out immediately because, it's hard right now. It's really hard to hold people in jail. And what does he do? Goes right back to the same house.
Wow.
And we arrest him again. And this time, the officers went to the court and said, hey, can you give us a triple no, which means he's not going to get out of jail until arraignment, which is only 3 days away. But so very next call, we're just hanging out and did our thing, and there's a call of a guy threatening people, all methed out. And right here in front of the building, this is where the officers contacted him, and I get there, and there's 5 of us rolling around the street with this guy, literally, and this is beach traffic day. So rather than people saying, hey, maybe I'll just wait and let the cops finish this.
They drove around you.
Oh, yeah, they're driving around us, looking at us like, oh, it's pretty interesting. I'm sure a couple of people were, hey, this will be great for YouTube.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and, it's like, I remember
Which
consciously.
street was that on? Ocean Street?
No, right here.
Right outside the door?
Right in front of the building.
And he was completely methed out. One of the officers had to tase him because he was trying to fight, and get him in custody. And then the next call right after that, another call of violence. And so they'll go from literally in the afternoon from call to call to call, handling that kind of stuff, and that has an effect on our folks.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and it really does. And by the way, that guy who we fought out there got arrested again last night for exactly the same thing.
So your police officers are doing their job, but they don't show result. There's no result or good result for them. They take one step forward and like 10 back because these criminals, like the guy who started cooking, he gets let back out. If you had that with a shoplifter. With the shoplifter.
Yeah. Shoplifters are not going to go to jail.
No, and she shoplifted from like 5 different stores. Right. And then we called, an officer came out, and we thought, oh, she's gone. 5 minutes later, she came back to the store and yelled at us for calling the police. We're like, hold it.
Well, here, just have a wheel then.
But earlier you said about the you holding them to arraignment. What's that called?
Arraignment.
No, right. But when you hold them.
Triple no.
The triple no.
Right.
Because I saw on the Santa Cruz Police social media, there was a gal over at San Lorenzo Park that they caught drug dealing 2 days in a row.
Right.
And they did that.
Right.
To hold her.
Right.
Is that more common now?
Well, you have to go to a judge. And you have to say, Your Honor, we need to not let this person out of jail because they're continuing to show a pattern of not being willing to abide by the rules. And
who does that? Who goes to the judge?
The officer.
Okay.
They'll call the judge. Our judges are really good at picking up the phone 24 hours a day for us. So they'll have somebody on call, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good about that. I think the issue, like we arrested a lady for selling dope, and she gets out, not surprised because it's just dope. And we arrest her again selling dope. And so the officers are looking at her probation record, and she was released from probation because she failed probation. I mean, the whole idea of being on probation is you have to abide by the rules. So she got released from probation because she wasn't doing well enough. And on probation, we normally have leverage against them. So if they're on probation, we can search them, for instance.
Right.
We're scratched our heads and say, how is this possible?
Right.
And so I think the judge actually got upset the second time we brought her in and actually, cranked up the bail.
That has to make policing more difficult. The effort it takes to deal with these repeat offenders.
Yeah, it is, because now especially, like for instance, the federal government as well as the state government is trying to take away qualified immunity from our officers. So let's say that...
Can you explain what that is actually?
Yeah, so qualified immunity is, there's 2 types of immunity. There's actually probably more than that, but the 2 types of effect, for us for the most part. There's absolute immunity, which the President of the United States has. So as long as he's acting in the official capacity of his office, there's nothing that can happen to him or her. If there is qualified immunity, that means as long as we're acting in good faith, that there's protection under the law. So let me give you an example. If I run you for warrants and it comes, well, actually, I probably should run him for warrants.
Run Neil, for sure.
If I run him for warrants and it comes back and says, yeah, Neil's got a warrant for assault with a deadly weapon, and so we hook Neil up and we take him to jail. We process him and book him into jail. And then Leighton Prince come back after the jail runs him and says, oh, it's not the right Neil. It's Neil Mills, not Neil this guy. And somehow we made a mistake. It was in good faith. Neil can sue us for false arrest. But we're normally protected, saying that, yes, you can sue and win. And you'll get money from the system for that. But you can't get my personal assets for that. And now, if you remove qualified immunity, now you get my personal assets.
Right.
Or let's say there's a disturbance downtown, or a protest downtown, and we've got people throwing rocks at windows and breaking windows. But not, and what you typically have is, 50 people of a crowd of 1,000 doing it. But you declare an unlawful assembly. You say, if you don't leave, we're going to start, using rubber bullets, or we're going to start putting gas out there, whatever the case may be. And people got affected by the gas that weren't the 50. Or it might have been the 50. And they say, hey, this is what you violated my constitutional rights by gassing us. Now I'm going to sue you because you made a decision to take away my constitutional rights, but through seizing us
Right.
because of the gas.
And not necessarily suing the Santa Cruz Police Department. You're suing the officer.
That's right.
Is that going to make it impossible to get officers?
That'll make it difficult, very difficult, and because
You mean as far as
As
employment?
far as getting qualified, competent, top-notch officers in here.
yeah, I mean, who wants to work 30, 40 years and all of a sudden lose everything that you worked for? I mean, I know businesses do that, sometimes, but I think the difference is you're being put into places and spots where you're making decisions in milliseconds. We had an incident the other day where a guy was running around in the middle of traffic trying to stab cars as they're driving by, tried to stab a police car with a police officer in it. And then they get out and they're trying to coordinate and get him cornered and so forth, and they get him contained. And then a person's walking through and he grabs the person and holds him hostage. And
Wow.
yeah, so now the officers are confronting this, and they're setting up. They're trying to use less lethal to get him in custody without having to shoot him. But it was close. And so, what if you do use that shooting? You do have to wind up using, that level of force, and then he winds up suing you. And then, in hindsight, somebody says, because there's new laws in effect, that says, hey, you know what? You shouldn't have shot him then. You should have, waited more time or talked to him a little bit longer, or
Right.
used the taser first, and
Wow.
then because you always get these experts that come into court and testify and say, oh yeah, this guy, I haven't had a class since 1993, but I know that this officer should have done this, and if the jury buys it, you're in trouble.
Which is insane. To me, a person grabs a hostage and holds a knife to them. You almost expect to have some extreme force used against you.
Immediately.
Yes, and so to have an officer who says, I maybe have to hold back on this for my own safety of financial security.
Not only that, they don't want to go to prison
Right.
now that this has become a reality, and so now highly unlikely in that situation.
Yes, I agree. Right.
So I don't want to over dramatize this.
Right.
Right.
I get that.
But at the same time, it's constantly in your mind. This guy that we fought out here on the street, I mean, strong guy. So, and I had Juan Becerra with me. I was going to bring Juan up here today. He's 6'4", 320 pounds of muscle.
I know one. I've seen him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when he does the bench, literally the bar's bending. I mean, he's that big.
Yeah.
Play football at South Dakota
Same as
or
me,
something.
Steve.
like that.
Yeah. Looks like you.
Yeah, exactly. Flex force was in, yeah. But, so Juan is on top of him. So, and I'm 200 plus pounds. I'm on top of him. So now we're talking 500 pounds on this guy. And he's still fighting with us. And we had two other officers there. And, finally, Juan goes, hey, grab his wrist and pull it the other direction. So I did, and we get him in custody. I got him in a chicken wing, with my pin between my knees, and now we're getting him handcuffed. And but my knees are on his back. That was the only way to control this guy, with
Right.
weight.
Right.
But then I'm thinking, okay, man, he's in a position
Right.
where if he's this methed out, it could easily be positional asphyxia. And now we weren't there 9 minutes. It was
Right.
probably 30 seconds, which seemed like
So
9
you
minutes.
need to get off of him.
Well, no. What we did is we finished handcuffing, and then rolled them to his side, which is the policy. Is the technique is you roll them to their side. That way, the pressure's not on their chest. But there's no other way to do it. And you can't use the taser unless they're doing assaultive behavior, because there's court cases on that. So, I mean, we expect our officers to be these mini lawyers running around knowing all these court cases, because if they don't, they wind up in trouble.
So they're constantly being trained on changes in procedures.
Well, yeah, we try. But the hard part is, and this is, I think, one thing we can do better in policing, but it's going to take a mindset shift for our communities. People are thinking that most of our cops are ninja fighters, these MMA guys or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The reality is no, most of them are not. We have some guys, just some folks here, men and women, who are just tough. I mean, they're really good, strong, capable people. But fighting, you get hurt a lot, and so we're really trying to think about how can we help our officers train more physically. Firefighters get to go out and run around the building. They get to work out on duty. We don't. So we're trying to figure out how do we allow our officers to work out on duty, to maintain a higher level of fitness, to stay in shape. We could probably stop eating donuts. I know that's what you were thinking.
No more donuts.
But so we want them to work out on duty. We also like to give them more time in the mat room to work on those techniques, so that they have that ability. And I think that, but tough to do, because now that what's going to mean is I got to pull people out of the field who are not answering those calls that people are wanting immediate response on. And so either we have to raise the amount of officers and give them that time, or just say, I'm sorry, community, you're going to have to wait a little bit while their officers train.
I know in the past when we talked, you've had issues with staffing. What's the level currently in Santa Cruz?
We are at 79 officers,
Right.
and our total staff's like 130, and we have civilian staff members. As you know, because of budget cuts, we laid off all the rangers, and then they came back because the 10% furlough, and the POA did not come to an agreement with the city, so I had to shed about 9 sworn positions. And so that's almost up. So we're gearing up. We already got people in the pipeline to get hired and bring that back up. But we're fully staffed for where we can be.
We talk about the incident with the taser and the lady back in Carolina.
And that was in Minnesota.
In
also.
Minnesota. I'm sorry, but the mistake between the taser and her handgun.
Yeah.
How have you addressed that situation here?
Well, first of all, it's terrible. I honestly believe it was a mistake. I don't believe it was an intentional act. But we have to be better than making those kind of mistakes.
Right.
So what we did is we took a look at our staff and how are people carrying their tasers on their duty belt. And so immediately after seeing that, went downstairs, talked to my taser instructors, and we talked it through and I gave them pretty clear direction that I want all tasers carried on the opposite side of the body as the gun, so that they have to draw with the opposite hand rather than their gun hand, and so that there can be no mistakes.
Right.
And that means that they can't do a cross draw with a gun hand. It just has to be the opposite hand. Now, if they transition to their strong hand after that, which they shouldn't need to, because we teach them to shoot with both hands. So hopefully that will eliminate that. And what we're trying to do is eliminate things that can get us in trouble without jeopardizing the safety of the officers. And like, for instance, shooting at or from moving vehicles. That's what happened in North Carolina. We have a strict policy on that.
Which is?
You can't do it.
Right.
Unless it's a type of thing where you're pinned up against the wall and you're about ready to die.
Right. Or an officer down situation or something along those lines.
Or, the person, like the Nice, France attack, where the person is using this as a weapon of mass destruction. Then, that's all you got. That's all you've got. But it's prohibited.
The homelessness is that the number one problem we have, or is drugs the number one problem, or mental health the number one problem?
It's potato. It's all the same. So meth and mental health. What came first, the chicken or the egg? We don't know, and I don't think anybody can tell us.
Because we had the mayor on the other day.
Donna Myers, great show.
It was a really good show.
Real smart lady.
Yeah.
Real smart
But she
lady.
kind of put it. She's like, well, hey, okay. Well, she was expecting the question, homelessness, right? Here we go. We asked her the same old thing. She's probably been asked 1,000 times, and she kind of put her hands up in the air and go, I don't know what to do. She didn't say what solution. She goes, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do that. She goes, I don't know what to do.
Well, she said, we don't have the money.
We got the money. We have no help.
Create the solutions.
Right. Nor the staff.
Nor the stuff.
Right. So, like over the weekend, or the last week, we've been dealing with this guy up in Upper Poganuc. He's been running around screaming at people, scaring the snot out of joggers, and a lot of women up there have gotten several calls and emails on it. And so we went up there to try to locate the guy. We find him, and he runs up to to a cliff. He's getting threatening to jump, and it's a 30% incline, so we really can't get to him. And so we're looking at our tools. Well, you can hit him with a 40 millimeter, which is like a sponge ball round, and knock him off the cliff.
Right.
Yeah, so that doesn't work. That's what you went up in prison for, making those kind of decisions. And so we had to leave. There's, we kept a couple people there in case he came down. He didn't. He's smarter than that, but he's still out there. And so we finally got him away from the cliff a couple days later, or actually it was this weekend, and got him detained. And took him to mental health, and hopefully gets the help he needs. Had another guy the same day on Pine Street go climb up in a tree, howling at the moon. And, and so it's not like a cat. We can't call the fire department to get their ladder truck out. So, the officers tried to negotiate it with him. And by the way, the guy up on the cliff, we brought mental health liaisons up there, try to talk him down and try to work with them, and it was just completely, gone. Get that guy out of the tree. We had to leave on that one. And then as soon as he came out of the tree, we went right back and grabbed him. Right. And so these things are, I'm not sure, to be honest. It almost seems like there's really a bad, formula of meth out there that's just causing people to really go off the deep end. And,
it's getting worse and worse.
The meth, yeah. Meth is everything. Heroin makes you docile, makes you fall asleep. Scratch your face. Like Pink song says, where meth is just bouncing all over the place.
Right.
And so how do you stop that? Is that a federal thing to stop meth? Like, is it?
I think it's all hands on deck. I was telling you the story about the cartel stuff, and this is all cartel. There's not much meth made in the United States anymore. These are all super labs in Mexico, where they'll crank out 2,000 tons of meth and then smuggle it across the border.
So that's what we have to try and stop at the border.
Well, the corruption is probably the reason it's not.
Yeah, well, corruption is a difficult thing. The FBI is constantly working corruption cases on the border. You've got Mexico, which is corrupt as it possibly can be, from top to bottom. And I worked cartel cases when I was in San Diego, and these guys are no joke. But so I think how much do we really want to do this? As a nation, is it time to get tough with Mexico and saying, hey, look, we're going to shut you down completely, or we're going to embargo you? I don't want to do that because I love Mexico.
Me too.
I love going to Mexico.
Me too.
Yeah. And I love,
But you would stop going there on vacation if you knew it would make a difference in our town or in our cities in our own country.
That's right.
You would go somewhere else.
That's right. Or
you have to vacation somewhere else. But
well, it's just it seems like they don't really have a desire to stop it currently.
Well, I think the people do. The people of Mexico do. I think it's the corrupt leadership of Mexico. When we were working those cartel cases, we were arresting people who were in high-ranking positions and luring them across the border to arrest them up here because we knew nothing would happen to them down there. And we arrested one guy, and he immediately said, "Do you know who I am? You can't detain me." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, Charlie, you're in U.S. soil."
And this is when you were with the San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but the point is, we've got to stop it in Mexico, and if that means drone strikes on the super labs down there, I know that our intelligence folks can ferret that up pretty quickly. But Mexico doesn't want us on their soil doing that, so we've got it. That's going to have to be a priority because I don't see us getting this straightened out.
But you don't hear about it in national news. Mm-hmm. You don't hear about it at all.
No.
And yet homelessness has become not just in Santa Cruz, it's become a countrywide problem.
Well, TC and I were talking about other cities that we've been in that are just literally, it's crazy, and it's hard to understand in the cities that are really impacted how bad it is, and it's difficult here. It really is. For the people who live here, for the homeless people, and as much as it bothers you. At the same time, we don't treat our animals like we treat sometimes homeless people.
Right.
But at the same time, they've got to have to have help.
Yeah.
You can't force them. And the other thing is, Don is looking for solutions, and I agree with her. We don't have that. But I honestly think that we're at a point in our nation's history where we need to reverse the Reagan decision and have compulsory incarceration for people who can't control their own lives. And I think that's meth and mental health, where we got to get them locked up until they get dried out, until they get to the point where they can say, okay, I get it, I need the help, I'm willing to now make the effort. And
Yeah.
without that,
No, right.
I don't think we're going to see substantial change.
Yep.
I think that if you were to take a poll, you would see unanimous support for that.
Yeah.
You know, just because people are so frustrated. Every city in California
Right.
has the same problems.
Right.
And I just think people are kind of at their wits' end.
Do you have an idea how many people who are on meth do want to get better, have made a mistake and taken meth? Now they're deep down that down that road, but would like to get out, would like to get better. Are there people out there like that?
There are. Brian Hall's a guy I know, and I'll use his name because he has no problem with that, who was a hardcore meth addict, slinger. I mean, went to prison for it, got out, and started using again, and then got religion, got faith, and then got straightened out. Now he runs the rescue mission in this town that he's at, and hasn't used in a decade, and is helping other people get off meth. But it's kind of rare.
That's just one guy.
That grabs.
Need
a
about
hold
100 of him, right?
We need thousands of him.
Right.
And you have to want it. I know somebody that for a while was living under the Soquel Bridge at the river here, and it was had a terrible addiction problem. But one day he woke up and said it's over, and to this day he's been doing really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you have to want that. But I do agree with. I think it was Reagan who sort of got rid of our mental health.
Yeah.
The facilities for people to get care. And I think you're right. That needs to come back. And I just think it's in the last 10 years. I think we've about doubled in the homeless crisis in this town. And I hope that it's not going to double again in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, the numbers are staying pretty consistent in terms of the percentages of who's local and who's not. But as we get more social stress, COVID-19, jobs, housing, all that kind of stuff, I think the addiction rates go up. And as the addiction rates go up, you get more homelessness. I don't necessarily, I know people say, oh, it's because of the housing. Well, true, but I think there's some of the folks who I have met who are homeless, you couldn't put them in a house right now. They wouldn't know how to live in the house.
Yeah. How did you guys deal with COVID? Obviously, Don and Mars talked about when COVID came about. There was no instructions, no handbook. There was no. This is what you got to do. No one knew what to do. How did you guys? Obviously, with your officers, they're out there on a daily basis. How did you train them for that day that COVID arrived on our doorstep?
It was interesting because when I saw the news coming out of China, before it had really even started here, I got a little concerned about it because, I've been reading Bill Gates and, hey, pandemics are likely to, really be a big effect. And so I went downstairs and, I just like everybody in China was wearing a mask. I thought, hey, let's order some masks because we can use them anyway. And so let's get 10,000 masks, let's get them ordered and all that kind of stuff. And I think a couple of guys were like, frickin' chief, overreacting, whatever. But so we ordered the mask, and the federal government seized them that fast.
They seized them?
Yep. We didn't get them. And so then we had to go to cloth, and remember?
Yeah,
So so whoever it was, I'm sorry. But our officers did a great job. We went to 12-hour shifts because we didn't know where it was going to be, what was going to take place. I mean, we had heard, things like, hey, the sheriff's office was ordering extra refrigerated trucks to house all the bodies. That that's the information we were getting from public health, and so we were we were really concerned about it, and but our officers, I have to tell you, I was just so impressed because these young folks went out there knowing the possible consequences and stuck their heads down and just did their jobs anyway.
Because at that point, they were essentially risking their lives.
Mm-hmm.
As far as they knew.
Yeah, because we didn't know.
Yeah.
And wow, I mean, it's almost like a kamikaze pilot or something,
Right.
Like you just don't know.
Did you get any cases? Any officers?
Oh, we had a lot of officers get COVID.
You did? You really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then
And they all came out ahead?
Yeah, the outbreak came out. Well, one's still off duty. He's been off for months because that's affected his lungs, where he hasn't really been able to breathe.
Right.
And he he can't walk more than a few steps without having to sit down. Why can't him off the field?
Yeah.
And good guy too. But we were fortunate. We weren't NYPD, who lost, I think, 45 officers. LA lost a ton also, and to COVID, and it's just tragic.
Or the long-term effects.
Oh, the long-term effects.
We'll see.
What's that?
What's your biggest worry coming to work? Was it is it the homelessness situation, or is it budgetary, or what is your?
My biggest worry is that one of my guys aren't going to make home.
That's your biggest worry.
Yeah. There's just so much violence. There's so many guns right now. There's so many ghost guns that are taking.
Yeah, I see on Facebook. I'm like, you pull over a car and there's a freaking arsenal in the back or whatever.
Right.
You like
Yeah.
all these photos of guns, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah, there's a lot of guns and a lot of people. For instance, if you're methed out and you're paranoid and you've got a gun and you think this cop's following you, you're just going to stop and start blazing.
Right.
That and then and the other thing that really concerns me is if we missed a cue that we should have seen. Like for instance, we get a lot of threat cases, and we have a threat protocol that we developed here out based on some academic research, and we're really proud of it. That we believe we've stopped a couple of mass shootings, and so we go
In
through
this town?
Yeah, so we go through this protocol, the potential for those shootings, and we go through this protocol, and we look at that information, and then we try to make a decision: do we go ahead and seize guns? And there's under the gun violence restraining order, so we do that fairly regularly. And I know the sheriff's office is in Watsonville and Capitola, and we're all doing it now. It's the red flag laws, but my fear is that did we miss one cue that we should have had,
Right.
and that we didn't do a thorough enough job, that we didn't do it fast enough.
Does that keep you up at night?
It does.
Yeah.
Well, because the press that comes from that too, we've had just a massive amount of shootings in the
Right.
country, and it's always like, oh, we should have known about that guy.
That's right.
How's the stress of that alone is just insane.
Yeah, the stress is. I mean, if I have some guy come, and let's face it, it's going to be a white guy between 25 and 40, about
Right.
95% sure. But if I have some guy come and tear up our town, and I should have known about it, that's on me.
Yeah.
And that blood's on my hands.
And that's pretty much every chief feels that way.
Yeah.
I would hope.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
So you're looking under a microscope every day
Yeah.
to make sure you don't miss anything.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep track of all that. But I tell you what, I've got great staff. I've got Bernie Escalante and Jose Garcia as my two deputy chiefs. They're wonderful. I can't speak highly enough of both of them. And then I've got a really good, solid lieutenant's corps who really keeps an eye on things, and our sergeants are really working hard too.
And you work closely with the sheriff department,
We do.
CHP.
Yep.
Yeah. We had Captain Aaron Ching on the show.
He's a
and
good guy.
He's a
great
good guy.
Yeah.
Good guy. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
funny guy. He's a good guy. But so
Are you hiring right now?
We are. Yeah, if you're out there and you want to come and work hard and make decent money and have fun, can't think of a better place to go. You're going to learn more here in just a few years than you will in most police departments, and that's what you want to do.
Why? Why do you say you're going to learn more?
Because the volume, and because the volume of calls, the stuff you're dealing with,
Right.
so you want to learn your trade craft. And I mean, if you're going to be whatever you do for a living, computer programmer, you want to get that experience, and you'll get it here pretty quickly.
Right.
I know there's been a push to get college grads.
Right.
Is that required?
It is not required.
Okay.
We like college grads because you're showing that you've been disciplined, that
Work hard.
that you've worked hard, that you can reason. But at the same time, some of the best cops I've ever known, some of the most empathetic, good, clear thinkers, didn't have degrees because they were just at a point in their life where they'd spent a few years in the military or maybe had children early. And they just couldn't do it initially and then had to do it later in life. And we've got several people here like that. So that's no barrier to me.
I remember going on a ride along with Jake Ainsworth, and the computer in the car has all the calls, and you take the top ones, and the other ones you can't deal with because they're small.
Right.
Which one's the top ones that you deal with?
Well, it's based on priority because it changes all the time.
Okay.
But any call of violence, we're going to respond to fairly quickly. It's the annoying to the community littler calls, that we just
Can't deal with.
you just can't get to
Right.
it sometimes. But you try, and then people get annoyed because they'll say, "I called the cops, they didn't come," and then I'll start talking to them a little bit because I'll look at the computer and see if we did respond, and we did respond. But I'll say, well, how long were you in the window, waiting for the cop to drive by? Well, I wasn't. Well, then how do you know the cop didn't go into the neighborhood? If you want to be contacted by us, we'll contact you. But a lot of times people don't want to be contacted; they just want us to handle it, and that's fine. And there are certain calls we've just done all units broadcasts on, like somebody picking cans out of your recyclables out in front of your house. I'm not going to send a cop on that.
Right.
I'd rather have us work on other things.
Yeah.
But
What's the fun part? The fun part of the job is, because right now it's not that much. Doesn't sound like that.
the fun
that
part,
much fun.
I know the fun part is talking to you two blokes. You know what? It's the camaraderie.
Right.
It's always about the people that you're with.
Right.
And we have some great people here who, sometimes, policing is this way. Sometimes you'll cry because you're seeing something that's so horrible. And sometimes you'll laugh until you cry because something is so ridiculous. And then sometimes it's so intense. And other times it's pretty chill. And you're on your own all day long, driving around, and so there's a lot of freedom to do certain things, and we're okay.
Yeah.
If you take 20 minutes and go get a cup of coffee and hang out with some of your buddies, no problem with.
So you played basketball with a couple of kids the other day at the park.
I did. I got smoked as usual.
You got no game, that.
I know.
Well, I feel like that's a real talent that you have with your interactions with the community.
Yeah.
You're not afraid. And I've known since the first day you got here that you're not afraid to talk or walk the street and let people know that you're approachable.
And it's what I like is that you read the comments and they're all positive, right? You're supported by the community.
I would say most
and
are.
your sheriff is too.
Yeah. Listen, I know that there's people that,
Of course.
if I were to leave tomorrow, they'd be the happiest day of their life, and that's okay. That we're a big community. But I think it's important for me to connect as much as possible with the people of our community and talk with them and to be a real human being and to admit when we make mistakes, but also celebrate when we do things right. We just gave out a bunch of awards to our officers for de-escalation, where they could have used lethal force and they didn't, so we give them little pins to put on their uniform, to celebrate what they've done right. We do so much right all the time,
Right.
but we do screw up sometimes.
Yeah. Last question, I think, TC. Tomorrow night we're interviewing Dr. Gail Newell.
I love her.
Yeah. Can you comment about the job she's done a little bit? I mean, I listened to a podcast today. I read the New York Times article. You've obviously had some interaction with her.
I think
she was abused. I mean, she was hit hard.
Yeah, she was, and I think it was unfair. I mean, because we were all dealing with something that we really didn't know. So you'd make the best judgment you can. And I'll tell you what I appreciate about her. When we were going through trying to get COVID shots for our cops, they gave them to fire, they gave them to paramedics, and the cops got nothing. And I was a little bit upset. So I called Gail and said, hey, Dr. Newell, what can you do to help my folks get shots? Because we're out there every day, and before paramedics and firefighters go in, we got to go in to clear it for them. So we want and need those shots. Because if I and we were having at a point in time, people getting sick here in the building. One guy gets sick on a squad, the whole squad's out for 14 days. And so I got 3 people sick on 3 different squads. Half my department's gone. And she said, Andy, I empathize with you, but I'm only getting 2,000 shots, a month for the entire county. And I've got people dying in South County. And morally, Andy, I can't make that decision. But here's what you can do, and guided me. And so I did exactly what she told me, and within 3 days, most of my department who wanted shots got them.
That's cool.
And so I have a great deal of admiration for her.
Yeah.
Well, and her job as well was, practically an impossible win.
Right.
When you're shutting down a community, people are going to
Beaches,
get really emotional.
Restaurants.
Yeah.
And again, it was new to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the data. We didn't know that if you're outside in the sunshine, that hey, that is unlikely to be spread as much. And so and I didn't like some of the decisions she made, but I supported her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing that people don't know is that not only was she taking abuse, in emails and in the media and social media and stuff, but there were people actually going to her home.
Right, outside of the
and so completely unacceptable. But these are people that you would expect that would come from.
Yep.
I noticed we had the anti-maskers like doing the Trader Joe visit.
Yeah.
you came out and you were like, hey, look, no dice. And it stopped, it seemed like.
Well, I think the reason it's stopping or stopped for the most part is because we've actually got warrants for most of those people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what we did is we went into the video, and so what people don't understand, it's like your business. If somebody's trespassing your business and you don't want to prosecute, I can't do anything unless the business wants to prosecute. And the problem with these larger corporations, the attorneys are always going to say no. I've never had, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I've never had one corporation say, yeah, you know, we'll sign the warrant for this guy for trespassing on our property. I've never seen it. You know, big corporations and medium-sized corporations, smaller folks can do it. So they didn't want to go forward, and so we're frozen there. So we talked about it up here. I talked to my investigative team, and you have to remember, these are the little infractions. It goes infraction, misdemeanor, felony. Nobody's going to go to jail on this thing. You can't go to jail on these things. So we talked about it, and we said, hey, look, what if we take the video and analyze the video, and when they come within 6 feet of somebody else not wearing the mask, because that was the rule, that we go after that, and based on the video that we have. And that would like to thank them for supplying to us. And so we talked to the city attorney's office, and Tony Candid is a great guy and real smart, and Cassie Bronson. And they said, that'll work. So we did everything we could to scrub the Facebook and social media, and spent probably way too much time on it. And then contacted them and said, hey, do you want to make a statement on your behalf? And all of a sudden, things stopped happening.
Awesome.
So, but we still have those warrants, and we're going to track them down and serve them, and write them a ticket, and then go from there.
Well, that's great police work right there. I mean, to me, because I was like really upset when I saw that.
Yeah.
It really did upset me.
So, Chief, we got to ask him a question. He's seasoned guest, TC.
Go for it.
So, Chief, we want to know, how long have you been a police officer for?
Well,
40 years?
You have to count the stripes. Those are five.
So.
Yeah,
those are 5-year stripes.
5-year stripes. I've been doing this since.
There's a whole bunch of those.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 1977.
1977. Your favorite?
Were you born then?
I think I was 3, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Your favorite decade and why?
70s.
Why?
Best music freaking ever.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we've ever had that answer.
70s. Best music ever.
We've had all kinds of
Doobie
answers.
Brothers.
Doobies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good music. Your favorite day policing was? The day that you remember in the police force. And you know what? I'm going to put another thing. The worst day and the best day. The worst day you've had and the best day you've had policing.
Worst day I've had is we lost a bunch of cops right in a row when I was in San Diego, and 2 at a time. Or like in 1 year, we lost like 5, I think.
Oh, gosh.
And I remember walking out of the house on the way to work, and one of my neighbors yelled out, "Man, what's the matter with you guys? You can't keep from getting shot." Like, well, buddy, you have to keep from getting shot here, And so that was
tragic.
That was tragic,
Yeah.
And then going to those funerals, and one of them was my academy mate. I took a bullet just above his vest, and died, and so that was rough, a rough time. And then you talk about morale issues. That's when morale is bad.
Yeah.
When you're getting hit left and right.
Right.
And I think maybe one of the best days of policing is standing under the trolley tracks as a sergeant with my team smoking cigars. Sorry for those that get upset about that. I'm sure we'll get emails on that. But at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Where?
In Eastern Division in San Diego, and just laughing, telling lies and stories.
Right.
And we had just served a search warrant on a flea bag hotel, and I told one of our guys who's just a maniac, I said, "Hey, Tunk, I need you to go and get eyes on." He goes, "Roger that." And so he's running through a ditch, and I'm dealing with something else. We're getting a van there. We're going to do an entry on the building, and there's a guy slinging dope, and he had a 17-year-old girl in the room, so we had to be careful how we did it and all this kind of stuff. And so we said, "Hey, Steve, where are you at?" I said, "Under the car." "What car?" He was under the suspect's car he crawled under there, and with binoculars and looking right at the front door, and he goes, "When you guys pull up, I'll jump up and I'll get in the stick with you." And he got up there, and he was oil from head to toe. From it was just so it's just the fun stuff that you remember.
Yeah, the good times, right?
Yeah, the good times.
Chief, thank you.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Chief. Keep doing a great job.
Yeah,
man.
we
I mean, this
appreciate.
town is. I'm proud as a Santa Cruz resident that I feel like I have a lot more trust in the Santa Cruz Police Department, and it's directly a result of
Absolutely, I second that.
you just being authentic and approachable. So keep
Appreciate
doing that. Yeah.
Good job, Chief. Thank you so much.
Yep.
We appreciate you.
Let's
We
go
do.
shoot some guns.
Go shoot some guns!
Neil, you got anybody you want to thank for supporting the show?
No, I'm going to do it tomorrow night.
You gonna do it tomorrow night?
Yep.
Okay, well, let's thank everybody for tuning in. Tomorrow night,
Dr. Gail Newell.
Dr. Gail Newell. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow night.